Agnetha Fältskog's story begins long before fame and fortune. Born in Jönköping, Sweden, she grew up in a small town with big dreams. From a young age, music became her escape, a world where she could express emotions too deep for words. Her voice, sweet and aching, carried a rare vulnerability that made people stop and listen. Even before ABBA, she was already a star in her own country, writing her own songs and performing with raw honesty. When ABBA exploded onto the world stage in the 1970s, Agnetha became one of the most recognized faces on the planet. Blonde, radiant, and seemingly untouchable, she was adored by millions. But behind that bright smile was a woman who was shy, introspective, and deeply romantic. Fame brought her admiration from every direction, yet her heart remained private, guarded, and full of unspoken desires. In interviews, Agnetha often downplayed her fame, calling herself a homebody. She preferred quiet moments, family, and nature over Hollywood glamour. But that didn't mean she was immune to admiration. Over the years, she met countless stars, singers, musicians, and actors, some of whom left a lasting mark on her heart. She kept her feelings locked away, afraid of the chaos public confession might bring. Only now, decades later, has she chosen to share those names. The first name on her list surprised even her closest friends. Elvis Presley. The king of rock and roll was her teenage obsession. Agnetha admitted that when she was a young girl, she used to dream about meeting him, listening to his voice, and maybe even singing with him. His charm, his eyes, his effortless style, everything about Elvis fascinated her. She once said in an interview, he had this power. You could feel it even through a record. I think every girl of my generation fell in love with him. Agnetha kept an autographed photo of Elvis for years, hidden in a private album. She said she was devastated when he died in 1977, the same year ABBA was at the peak of its fame. In a way, she saw him as a mirror, someone who gave everything to music but paid a heavy personal price. Elvis wasn't just a crush. He was a reflection of her own emotional struggle with fame. The second artist she mentioned was Paul McCartney. Agnetha had always admired the Beatles, but Paul stood out for her. His melodic sense, his soft voice, his gentle yet confident charm, these were things she deeply respected. She once revealed that Paul's song, Maybe I'm Amazed, moved her to tears. She said she felt like Paul wrote songs the way she wished she could. They met briefly in the early 80s, and though it was only a polite exchange, she confessed later that his kindness stayed with her. But Agnetha's feelings were never just about romance. They were about connection, admiration, and artistry. She was drawn to people who felt music the way she did. In her list, she included both male and female artists, people who inspired her emotionally and creatively. The third artist was Barry Gibb from the Bee Gees. Agnetha said Barry's falsetto voice was haunting and sensual. She admired his ability to turn pain into melody. In her words, he sang like someone who had lived 1,000 loves and 1,000 heartbreaks. When ABBA met the Bee Gees at an award show in the late 70s, she said Barry's charisma was impossible to ignore. His confidence mixed with sensitivity reminded her of something rare, something magnetic. The fourth name on her list was David Bowie. Bowie represented everything Agnetha wasn't: bold, experimental, unpredictable. She said she was fascinated by his fearlessness and how he kept reinventing himself. In her private diaries, she reportedly wrote about seeing Bowie perform live and feeling electrified. For a woman known for her soft image, Bowie's energy was thrilling. He was danger wrapped in art, and she loved that combination. The fifth artist she admired was Neil Diamond. Agnetha described him as a storyteller of the soul. His songs like Sweet Caroline and Love on the Rocks carried the same kind of emotional honesty she valued. She admitted that during her quiet years in the 80s, when she lived mostly out of the spotlight, she would often play Neil's records at home. His voice comforted her. He understood loneliness, she said once. He sang about it without shame. By the time she mentioned the sixth name, her tone grew softer. It was Cat Stevens, the folk icon known for his spiritual songs. Agnetha said that when she listened to Wild World or Father and Son, she felt peace. Cat's music reminded her of the quiet countryside of Sweden, where she felt most at home. She admired his decision to step away from fame to seek meaning, a choice that mirrored her own eventual retreat from the public eye. And the seventh name? That one shocked everyone. It wasn't a global superstar. It was Bjorn Ulvaeus, her ex-husband and ABBA bandmate. Despite their painful divorce and years of distance, Agnetha confessed that she still admired him, not just as a songwriter, but as a man who once understood her better than anyone else. "You can't erase history," she said softly. "He was part of my heart, and in some way, he still is." Her confession about Bjorn wasn't about regret, it was about acceptance. Even after heartbreak, she could still speak of him with tenderness. That revelation touched millions of fans who had always seen the two as a tragic love story. Agnetha's honesty gave closure not only to herself, but to everyone who grew up believing in their music. As Agnetha revealed these names, she made one thing clear. This wasn't a list of crushes, but a reflection of her emotional journey. Each artist represented a chapter of her life: youth, fame, heartbreak, and rediscovery. She said that through them, she learned to understand herself better. They inspired her to love, to create, and to keep believing in beauty even when life felt heavy. When ABBA disbanded in the early 1980s, the world saw it as the end of an era. For Agnetha Fältskog, it was something even deeper. It was the end of a life she had built around music, love, and togetherness. The band that had once made her feel alive and connected was gone, and so was her marriage to Bjorn Ulvaeus. What remained was silence, a heavy silence that echoed louder than any stadium she'd ever performed in. In the years that followed, Agnetha tried to adjust to a life without the flashing lights. But fame, once tasted, never really leaves you. It lingers in every glance from a stranger, every question from the press, every whisper about what really happened. For a woman as sensitive and private as Agnetha, that was both a blessing and a curse. She had always been emotional, drawn to beauty and melancholy. But now, the very thing that once gave her joy, music, had become tangled with pain. She once described the breakup of ABBA as like a divorce with four people. The music they made together still connected them, but emotionally, they were all drifting apart. Agnetha often found herself reflecting on her past, her choices, and the people who had shaped her. The 7 artists she admired secretly were not just figures of attraction. They were mirrors to her own soul, representing the emotions she couldn't always express aloud. Elvis Presley remained her eternal symbol of charisma and tragedy. She would often play his records in solitude, hearing not just the music, but the loneliness between the notes. Elvis had everything: fame, beauty, and talent, but it consumed him. Agnetha understood that feeling too well. She once admitted that when she sang love songs on stage, she felt a strange emptiness afterward, as though she had given too much of herself to the audience. She saw in Elvis the same struggle she faced, the desire to be loved and the fear of being misunderstood. He was loved by everyone, but maybe not known by anyone, she once said quietly in an interview. That's the hardest part of fame. You give so much of yourself, but you're never sure if what they love is real.